I do not like heavy. In fact, I am so passionate about my hate for the heavy weapons guy that I simply removed the heavy from my HUD. I'm sure there are people who feel the same and people who feel the opposite, so let's go through my thought process. It's not like I hate the heavy's character. In fact, he's one of my favorite TF2 personalities between all of the classes. In the comics, he's a funny guy. In his voice lines, he's also a funny guy. I just disagree with everything that his gameplay is. Skillless, broken, and this shit. Let's go through each of those points and deep dive into this. First up on the list is skilllessness. Every class in TF2 requires some minuscule amount of skill to get a good kill streak going, even if it's simply being able to aim your gun just well enough to avoid enemy fire, or being able to predict where the enemy is going, or... Okay, well, let's move on. You get my point. It's possible to get a kill or two without knowing much about the game or about your class, but the skill you have in the game significantly impacts how well you can do when playing on your own. This trend continues for all classes, even Pyro with his air blasting abilities and such, even if it's a little less than the other classes. But the skill required to have a strong impact on heavy, the skill to get 3 or 4 or 5 kills and allow the tides of a game to change, is tiny. Here, let's use me as an example. I have over 6,000 hours in Team Fortress 2. Almost 1,000 of those hours have been spent on my main class, Soldier. It's fair to assume that I am most skilled in Soldier. My second least played class is Spy, and I suck really bad at Spy. This trend goes for all my classes, and as we go down, we get to my least skilled class, Heavy, with just 56 of my 6,000 hours played on it. You would assume that this means that I can't be very effective on Heavy, just like I am with Spy. Wrong, because you need near to no skill to do remotely good on Heavy. You might be saying, oh, but Elk, that's because you have map knowledge and game knowledge and whatever. And so how do you explain the hordes of brand new players top scoring as Heavy in every damn casual match? It's stupid. At least with Pyro you can do your air thing. The biggest skill you need on Heavy is the knowledge to rev up your minigun in midair so you don't lose speed around a corner. People say that this is because Heavy has direct counters, like Sniper or Spy. But the stupid thing about that is that TF2 shouldn't have direct counters. This game isn't rock, paper, scissors, Genji, Zarya, Pharah. Any player, as long as they're good enough, should be able to beat another player, with obvious exceptions like Medic. Except maybe not. Plus, I shouldn't be forced to play Sniper simply because they're running a Heavy. It might be a good idea to, and it would certainly make killing him easier, but if I'm good enough at Soldier, I should be able to kill the enemy. This brings me to my next point, broken. There are many ways to interpret broken, 2 of the most common being overpowered and buggy, which I think Heavy is both. First, we'll do overpowered. The Fat Lord that is the 5th class of Team Fortress 2 has one main nerf. He is slow. And that's all fine and dandy, especially considering how in TF2 speed is everything. Most competitive matches are determined by who got to the point first and who can push the fastest. In casual TF2, there are things that allow you to counter this, most notably the disciplinary action. If a soldier on your team whips your Heavy to mid, then your Heavy is getting there at the same speed as your Spy and Medic. A whipped Heavy is the same speed as the 2nd fastest class in the game, which doesn't seem like much until you take into account that speed is his only nerf, and he doesn't need to move that fast when he's shooting because he can take 450 damage anyways with a Medic. Speaking of Heavy with a Medic, in the 4v4 competitive game mode, it is banned to play with both a Heavy and a Medic at the same time. In 4v4, it's either a Heavy on your team or a Medic. It's either the character who's able to make others invincible, give them 150% health, and heal over 30 health per second, or the fat guy who can shoot good. I guess when they were testing whitelist for 4v4, they thought, holy shit, we need to convince players to not play Heavy because this is stupid. And so they made it so it's either Medic, probably the most important class in TF2, or the Heavy. Moving on to the second part of broken. Heavy is buggy. Not outstandingly, but there's some wacky shit. Like, what the fuck is this? Anyways, I don't know if anyone else sees this, but I feel like Heavy almost doesn't even fit in TF2. Again, not character or personality wise, but in terms of the gameplay itself. The game has an extremely high skill ceiling with all classes, and while they all have low skill floors, you can always get better and then get betterer. Seeing the skill ceilings is very clear when you look at games like Paladins. Paladins, I love you, but you're very easy. I mean, every match in Paladins feels like fighting bots. The hitboxes are the size of the fucking moon, and because there's no health packs or ammo, the remaining metaphorical floor space for skill is only on aiming, positioning, and basic movement, which is practically every game. In Team Fortress 2, map knowledge is almost necessary to play the game. This is one of the reasons it's so hard to get into. Whether you're a CSGO god, or you occasionally play Fortnite, everyone starts at the same place in TF2. I'm getting off topic here, but a character like Heavy, whose area for skill only contains being able to aim at the body because there's no additional headshot damage, and knowing when to run away when your health turns red, is kind of out of place. I think that Heavy and Sniper offer this kind of transferable skill, because the skill can be transferred between games. If I can hit heads good in CSGO, I can probably hit heads good in TF2. If I've ever played any first-person shooter, I'll be alright at Heavy. I guess this makes sense from the developer's point of view. If there was no place for people to start in TF2 where they could feel effective, no one would want to get into the game. It actually makes sense why new players gravitate towards Heavy, and why Heavy is the character on the front of all of TF2's advertising. Heavy is the class that anyone can do alright on. Heavy is like the Paladins of TF2 classes. You could be absolute trash and still feel effective. It almost makes me happy to think that there's something this kind to new players in the game. Until I'm reminded that after playing the game for 6 years, my 22 kill streak still gets ended by Bobby Basketball 14 with 1.8 hours in the game. You know what? You do you, Bobby. You do you. But fuck your character choice. All in all, I don't like Heavy. If you made it this far in the video, please know that this is not some cry to Valve about how Heavy needs to be fixed. This is mostly my emotional ramblings, and everything I say should be taken with a grain of salt. I fully expect a lot of people, if not the majority of people, to disagree with me. I just think that Heavy is a little bit meh to play against. The stuff I said in this video wasn't objective or based on facts or how TF2 is supposed to be played, so don't say shit like Valve needs to delete Heavy. Now, Sniper on the other hand.
Stab, stab.